Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to At the Book here on bet.nola.com. Brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Zach Ewing with Jim Derry and Devin Jackson, and we come to you with our weekend betting preview this weekend for the football weekend ahead and some baseball playoffs, some NBA underway. It's October, I've always said, is the best month for sports. I know people love March Madness. I love March Madness. I think October is the pinnacle if you like lots of different sports going on at the same time.
I've said the same thing for many years. I agree wholeheartedly. October into November to me is the best time. The best weekend, I think, in sports is that January weekend when the AFC divisional round's going on. It's the 4 football games, and it's right around the time of college national championships going on, and basketball swinging in the gear. That's my favorite weekend, but October is my favorite month.
Yeah, it's the baseball playoffs are a game changer because you have a big game even on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. You get those LCS doubleheaders, so those have been great too. Looking like an Astros Braves World Series. There's still a little bit of work for those teams to do, but that's what we're looking at. And so I know that would make a lot of people around South Louisiana happy too. A lot of Braves fans and a lot of Astros fans, of course. To start the weekend off tonight, we have Thursday night football in the NFL as always, and it's I don't want to say it's a bad matchup because they're both 3-3 teams, and it's a big game as far as the AFC playoff picture. But it's just kind of like the Broncos have been so bad since they started 3-0, and the Browns are the walking wounded. No Baker Mayfield, no Nick Chubb, no Kareem Hunt. They're starting Case Keenum and Dearness Johnson in their backfield, and this line has been steadily moving down. In fact, it's all the way down. This was printed this morning at -1.5. It's down to -1 now. Devin, what do you make of this sort of slog of a matchup we get tonight?
It's just I feel like it's more reason to end Thursday night football. I mean, I just feel like I just feel like we're getting to a point like every year, like we circle a couple games and we're like, okay, this looks like a good matchup on paper. You get to the season, you're dealing with injuries, you're dealing with not good teams. I just don't think the Browns are as good as they were last year. And even with, Baker Mayfield's kind of ailment and injury and whatnot, their offense just hasn't been the same team. And the games they were winning last year, they were struggling with. I know last year as well, they kind of struggled out of the gate as well. But I think the Browns are kind of that wild card team to be if they can get healthy. And then you look at the Broncos, I feel like we're just going to keep talking about their quarterback away from being something. And they haven't had a successful quarterback since Peyton Manning. They wasted several good defenses. I know their secondary is a little shaky this year, but, you have Von Miller still playing as good as he has been. But I think Thursday night football we've had some good games, but generally speaking, it's a lot of bad football being played because there's guys 3-4 days of rest, and it's just not a good product, I think.
I'm glad you brought that up. Circled back around to that because that's quite a hot take there. What am I supposed to gamble on Thursday nights if you take away Thursday night football?
Zach, I was going to say I don't think our sponsors would like Devin saying that too much.
But he is the only one who played college football here, so he knows what it's like.
Well, I don't think that's – not only do I think that's not going to happen, but I think eventually you may see some other night of football being played. So like college is expanded into every night. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if the NFL starts doing something along those lines because now that they're partners with all these betting books, especially here at Caesars and – obviously, I think that's the greatest thing in the world. I don't see Thursday night going away because you know what? People will watch if it's Jacksonville. I mean, look at Jacksonville and Miami and London at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday, and it probably got better ratings than the Lakers Warriors the other night. I'm just guessing. How
many people were in church like, hey, what's going on in that game? Got to check my fantasy team, 8:30 in the morning. Wasn't me.
Checking their betting. And praying for forgiveness at the same time.
Right. No, I don't know. I mean, I could see that. You'd have to add a bye week or two just to start adding in Tuesday and Wednesday games and things like that. But they certainly could do that. Then the season lasts longer, and that makes everybody happy too. So Perrin Keys, the sports editor here at the Advocate and Times-Picayune, is fond of saying your answer to everything is money. And it's true. Your answer to everything is money, and that's why we have Thursday night football, and that's why we might have Tuesday and Wednesday football, and that's why we bet on the games. So speaking of which,
that's why Cincinnati might not make the playoffs.
That's right.
Again. Yeah. I'm not talking about the Bengals. I'm talking about the Bearcats.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's true. Don't get me started on that. Not yet, anyway. Put Cincinnati in the playoff. They go undefeated. They deserve to be in. Let's play Cashin' In with Carville for this week. We'll get to James Carville's picks here in a second. You can play Cashin' In with Carville at NOLA.com/cashin-in. That's Cashin with no G, Cashin' In. Beat James Carville. You win monthly prizes, grand prizes at the end of the year for the top finishers, but you can only throw away 2 weeks. So if you forget to enter, you got to go back. You can take a couple of zeros, but you can't throw away more than 2 weeks. So make sure you log on and play Cashin' In with Carville. It's NOLA.com/cashin-in. James Carville this week, kind enough to join us again with his picks and also with his thoughts on the LSU coaching search. Of course, he's very, very well connected to the LSU program. So who will replace Ed Orgeron? We talked to James Carville about that too. So here it is, Cashin' In with Carville for Week 7. Welcome to Cashin' In with Carville for Week 7 of the NFL season. I'm Zach Ewing. That's James Carville. We're looking to rebound, James, this week. We've had your first bad week of the season, honestly.
Right. Yeah, it like we're talking before the show. We lost on 2 last plays, but that's gambling, okay? And it's remember, it's a season. It's not a weekend. I keep telling myself that.
That's right. Mark Stoops, the Kentucky coach, is either public enemy number 1 or your best buddy after calling a timeout with 3 seconds left to score a touchdown to cover against Georgia.
Right. Yeah, I was like, hey, what are you doing, man? Why don't you just kick a field goal, make you feel better?
If even the field goal would have killed the cover. So I would, you and I were in the same spot there. We both had Georgia, and it didn't work out. Right. The big news of the week, of course, is Ed Orgeron on his way out at the end of the season at LSU. What are your thoughts, first of all, on Ed O's tenure?
Right. Well, first of all, he coached, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, the greatest college football team in history. And remember, when he came in 2018 season, he didn't have a quarterback or a kicker. And he got the quarterback that had the greatest season in college football in 2019 and one of the great kickers of all time. And for, I guess, a multitude of reasons, and he and the athletic director, I think they're two people that love the state and understand the unique role that LSU football plays in the state, and sat down like mature people. I wish Washington was paying attention, and hammered out a deal. And as far as I can tell, and you're out there too, I think the fan base is very supportive. They didn't want to humiliate him, but they had a sense that it was probably time for a change. And
yeah, I don't know if Ed is happy about it, but I think he at least understands.
Yeah, no one is kind of happy about something like this, but he could have, thrown a fit or something else. And I think the one thing about Orgeron, I think he really loves the state, and although he didn't go to LSU, I think he really loves LSU. And more than anything else, I think Ed Orgeron understands the kind of unique position that LSU football is in the state. And you got to love it. You got to love them. That 2019 season, like, oh my God! And my daughter was a senior at LSU, and God damn, wouldn't it be great to go to LSU and you win the national championship? And then they would go in caravans. They'd go to the Vanderbilt game, or they'd go to the Alabama game, and it was great. So I'm glad she had a chance to experience that. And that January 13th, 2020 was, God damn, the best night I ever spent in my life.
he gave the state memories that can never be taken away. So.
No.
As we look toward the next coach, and I know you're friends with Scott Woodward, his MO is to go after a big name. Is that what you expect?
Yeah, and what he's going to do, I promise you, he's going to talk to I don't know how many people, right? And he's going to factor in a lot of things, I guarantee you. And I think one of the things that Scott's going to probably look for is somebody that can fit into this culture here. All right. And I don't know. I'd never, ask him, but everything about him. And if you look at all the previous hires he's had for like Chris Peterson, he's not going to go with the hot 29-year-old guy with a hot hand. All right. It's going to be somebody that can really run. And being a football coach is not just the field and, recruiting, it's managing a mini empire. There's a lot of, and LSU football we sell more season tickets than university and college football. We sell 70,000 season tickets. Well, to a place like LSU, it's a lot of revenue. This is not a 7-5 joint, and anybody that comes here knows that. We're not in Mississippi State.
Well, LSU facing Ole Miss this week. One of the possible candidates, Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss coach, obviously very well connected with Ed Orgeron, has worked with him at previous stops. So that'll be an interesting game.
Yeah. The over-under 76. I thought it was going to be higher than that.
It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, they're gonna be. I'm looking forward to watching it. To my generation of LSU fans, we'd rather beat Ole Miss than Alabama. That's not true anymore. But for a long time, for the LSU Ole Miss game, that was the biggest game of the year. I mean, that was that 58, 59 games. I mean,
the Halloween game, yeah.
And there was one where Doug caught a pass right at the end, and it ended 11-10. And it's been some great LSU Ole Miss games. I suspect it'll be a pretty good one up at Oxford this weekend.
No, that'll be a fun one. We got some other good ones too. Let's get to your picks for the week. Oklahoma State, for the second straight week, an undefeated team, but they're an underdog on the road. They're getting 7 points at Iowa State.
So a friend of mine told me the system is see something that makes absolutely no sense and then go the other way. So Oklahoma State is ranked. They're undefeated. They beat Texas and Austin with, scored 16 points in the fourth quarter. Now they're going to Iowa State with 2 losses and they're getting 7. That screams at you to take Iowa State because it makes utterly no sense. Any logical person would say, I got an undefeated ranked team. So no logic here, logic out the door, go the other way and don't walk, run.
So we're taking the Cyclones big.
Yes, sir.
All right. There are actually 3 ranked teams this week that are underdogs. Another one, the Oregon Ducks down at UCLA. I know you saw them play against LSU. UCLA is -2 in this game.
Oregon is the number 10 ranked school in the country. UCLA is good, but uneven. Everything tells you to bet on Oregon. Ergo, bet on UCLA.
We're taking the Bruins. All right. And then another good rivalry game. I think my favorite name for a rivalry game, the battle for the jeweled shillelagh. USC going to South Bend to face Notre Dame. This line makes a little more sense. Notre Dame is laying a touchdown against the Trojans.
They're usually a close game, and I think you generally bet off with points there. So I'm going with the 2 Los Angeles schools.
Okay, we'll take USC +7. Moving on to the NFL, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are right in the thick of the playoff race. A big one this week against Baltimore. The Ravens are -6.
I hate doing this, and I may end up pulling against myself, but I kind of like the Ravens.
Against Joe and Jamar, yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, that might be one I'd be semi-happy to lose.
You'll be okay either way there.
Yeah.
The big shootout of the week, I think, speaking of high totals, this one's 57.5, which is sky high for the NFL. The Chiefs -5.5 at Tennessee.
I think Derrick Henry is so goddamn good. He's getting 5.5 at home. This guy might be like Jim Brown. I don't know who you compare him to. Could you imagine tackling that guy?
No, I can't. I would not be able to.
I'm gonna go with the Titans.
We're taking the Titans +5.5. And then finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's several big lines in the NFL this week. This is one of them. The Bucs minus 12.5 at home against the Chicago Bears.
Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he owns, but I 12.5 points is too much. I'll take the Bears. They're not good, but they're not that bad. And there are a lot of NFL games that, they score at the end, just like what happened to us with Georgia and Kentucky. And I like to walk around with 12.5 in my pocket.
Hey, I'm with you there. A lot of these big lines, Houston's getting 17 against Arizona. It's a lot of points for an NFL game. Saints back in action Monday night.
Did you see that missed call on that balls and strike call in a Red Sox game?
Oh, it's pretty meaningful too. That just brings back the memories of that Saints Rams game. Like, how could you let this happen? In at least in football, they pick the referees for the playoff games. All right. So you got a score and the people get the highest score. In baseball, the union runs the umpires. And so it's just a rotation. This guy, he can't see. He's like one of the worst in the league in calling balls and strikes. Yeah. I hate these missed calls late in a really meaningful game. It's become a big debate in baseball. I have to ask you, James, are you on the side that wants to see the robotic strike zone?
I guess instant replay has just had such a profound effect on sports, and I think a very positive one. And maybe they can do something like, New York, if they see something egregious, they can issue a challenge. All right, but I kind of like the idea that some umpires have a little bit of a lower strike zone, a little bit of this, and that's part of the strategy of the game. But in something like that, there should be somebody sitting there watching that and saying, have the home plate umpire relook at this pitch.
All right, so a challenge system.
Make a rule that it has to be clear and convincing. So, if he's a half inch off the outside of the plate, I don't know if that's part of the game, but they could do something, because that, and again, the Saints thing, it's just these athletes, these fans, everybody, you vested in a whole year.
Sure.
And we're probably going to win the Super Bowl. And I mean, that was not a bad call. That was like 2 calls right in front of the guy's face. Now, I don't think he did it on purpose, and I don't buy all that the referees from Los Angeles. I think he just blew it. And just like I blew last week, I didn't want to blow last week, but I threw it over the fence. That's sports.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I mean, referees can make mistakes the same as players, the same as gamblers.
You have some technology that can correct the more egregious mistakes. You should make that available to you.
That's right. We need that as gamblers. I think we need that technology to correct our own mistakes.
Every now and then one goes your way, and you don't care.
the sports books wouldn't go for that. But, right. Saints back in action on Monday night in Seattle. Always a tough place to play, but no Russell Wilson for the Seahawks either.
Jeff Duncan thinks the Saints are going to get good, and I've found that if you follow Jeff, you're gonna be more wrong than right. And he knows that team. He knows Peyton, and I think we got no more than a couple of losses in front of us. Yeah, right. I really look for us to be in the playoffs, and a lot depends on Jameis Winston, but he's very conscientious of where he is. I mean, really, what I worry more about, and I think Sean Payton did, is that he tries too hard. You can't, if you try too hard, it defeats you. And he's got enormous pressure, but that's what you are when you're a quarterback in the NFL. That's a high pressure position.
That's right. Well, we covered a lot today on Cashin with Carville, from the LSU coaching search to the Saints to baseball umpires and, of course, the picks. James Carville, thanks for joining us.
Next week will be happier times, actually.
All right. We'll talk to you then.
All right.
Interesting stuff, entertaining as always from James there. He just gets going on a topic and doesn't want to let it go. And then we had umpire strike zones, and we had LSU coaching search, and we had whether the Saints are going to get on a winning streak, and he does think they're going to get on a winning streak. One thing we didn't ask him about, by the way, was Tulane, who they're sort of quietly having this super disappointing season. And I bring them up because they play tonight, and so do the Raging Cajuns. We have a couple of state games in college football tonight. Tulane is up in Dallas facing SMU. SMU's undefeated. They're 14-point favorites. And then the other game tonight, the Raging Cajuns, UL is also on the road up in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and they're 18-point favorites. Both of these games have a 71-point total. So if the NFL game bores you and you don't want to watch baseball, there's a couple of college games that'll be high scoring, if nothing else, for you with Louisiana teams. You guys have any thoughts on these couple of matchups?
Well, the Tulane. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say the Tulane matchup only interests me because SMU, and they're going to put up a lot of points. That's just how they play football. Tanner Mordecai has been fantastic for him. I believe he once was on Oklahoma's roster and West Virginia's roster, so he's bounced around a little bit, but he's found a home at SMU. Tulane, man, they after that game against Oklahoma where they nearly beat them, I just felt like they've never really gotten their footing, and it's going to be another matchup. I think they can hang around for a couple quarters, make it interesting, but they have just struggled in the second half this year, finishing games and keeping it close and finishing out. So I think we could very well hit that point total because Tulane feel like they're that type of team to score points, late in the third, fourth quarter when the game has already kind of been decided and make things interesting. So I think that'll be the game of the two I probably watch. Arkansas State's defense has just been dreadful this year. So the Raging Cajuns should roll pretty easily tonight.
Jim, you had a thought?
One of my close friends is a greenbacker, and he started off about 7-8 weeks ago. He was all pumped up and everything was great with the world. And, being an LSU alum, I grew up disliking Tulane, but I've come to we don't play them anymore. It's no big deal. It's not a rivalry anymore, except maybe in baseball. So I root for him, and man, he has been so down in the dumps. And I asked him about this game, and he didn't want to talk about it. So it's not a good year for Tulane fans. They really expected things to be going their way. And after the Oklahoma game, you had to think that we're going to have a great season, right? I mean, I did. So things have kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, and it's tough to be a Tulane fan right now.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, we'll see. And they seem to play their best under Willie Fritz when they are big underdogs, like they were against Oklahoma earlier this year. They've done it in the past. They beat Houston on a Thursday night when Houston had De'Aaron King and was in the top 25 a couple of years ago. So maybe they can find some magic tonight. It just doesn't seem very likely at this point. Speaking of not very likely, LSU beat Florida last week, and the Tigers are now go up to Oxford to take on Ole Miss. It doesn't get a whole lot easier. We've been talking about this LSU schedule, that was coming down the pipe after they lost to Auburn, lost to Kentucky. Listen, you got Florida, you got Ole Miss, you got Arkansas, you got Alabama, you got Texas A&M. I mean, outside of the one game break they get against UL Monroe, there is not an easy game left on LSU's schedule, and this one certainly isn't it. Interesting, though, they face Lane Kiffin here, who is at least you would think a candidate to be interviewed for the coaching position. I don't think he's the favorite, but I think he's at least going to be considered.
I'm not so sure. I thought maybe, but after talking to some different people this week, and then talking to Mike Detillier on Attitude yesterday, he's pretty sure it's going to be, if they want it, that it's going to be either Mel Tucker or James Franklin. And it seems most logical that would be the case. And I'm not sure that Lane Kiffin would even be number 3 or 4. And even if he were, would he want to make that jump? I'm not sure. So,
I think he'd take the job. I think he'd take the job if he was offered. But like you say, he probably is not the number one choice. No,
and look, I don't think he fits LSU really. I mean, he's not the kind of guy that's gonna fit in Baton Rouge. I just don't think. But that's a whole nother show that you could use a half of a show talking about, and maybe we will on Attitude at some point. But I really, the more I hear about Mel Tucker, even though at first, the first couple of days looking in, and I'm like, I'm not sure this guy, he's young. Does he have the experience? But the more I hear about him, and going back to think about Nick Saban when they plucked him from Michigan State, maybe we can get a Michigan State pipeline, and maybe Mel Tucker, if he comes here, will stay longer than Nick Saban stayed here. Who knows? But, I like both of those guys that are being mentioned as candidates. The only thing that worries me a little bit is I really, even though it's wishful thinking, and again, this isn't as an alum and not as an analyst or a columnist, but I would love to see the Tigers get into the Arch Manning race. And I don't think that either one of those guys is going to flip the needle, but who knows? Maybe, miracles happen every day, and Christmas is coming up.
Yeah, you never know. My only thing about Mel Tucker, as good of a job as he has done this year, he doesn't fit the Scott Woodward prototype as far as a proven winner. The guy's 14-12 in his career. He's only been a head coach for 3 years. Can he win? Most certainly, yes, he can. I don't know that he fits that prototype. Now, maybe somebody's in Scott Woodward's ear saying this guy's the next big thing and it's going to happen. I don't know that it's the most likely thing. He is the betting favorite right now, as we talked about on Monday on odds and ends. But it'll be interesting, and it'll be an interesting sidebar to this game where LSU is a 9-point underdog, as we said, up at Ole Miss. The total is 76. I know these two teams have played shootouts the last couple of years. To me, that's too high. If I had to bet on this game, I'd probably bet the under. Jim, I know you like Ole Miss.
I don't like Ole Miss. I love Ole Miss. I would be, last week I told you that, you were supposed to cue the tape. I'm right so infrequently that you're supposed to cue the tape and make me look good. But no, you couldn't do that. I was not surprised that they played well last week. I was surprised they won, not shocked. But I just thought it was going to be the game where the team came out and you doubt us and we can't do anything and they're one hurrah. And to me, that's what it was. I still don't think they're going to win another SEC game. I just don't. Maybe Arkansas, maybe. But Mike Detillier said yesterday he thinks they'll win one or two more SEC games. They'll be in a bowl game. They only need to win one more SEC game to get in a bowl game, as sad as that is. And it shows you how silly bowl games are, in my opinion. And let's just expand the playoff and do away with that junk. But it going along Devin's Thursday night theme, right? The sports books don't want to hear that. But I think that
there is nothing wrong with spending the holidays at the Gasparilla Bowl. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it.
My favorite was the Tulane Weed Eater Bowl. I don't even know if they have that anymore. But look, LSU cannot stop Ole Miss. They simply can't. Matt Corral, whether he plays or not, and he's going to play, whether he plays or not, the LSU cannot stop anything over the middle. Lane Kiffin is going to run this score up, and I don't like the under at all. I think LSU is going to score 30 points, but the problem is I think Ole Miss is going to score 60. So I think it's going to go way over the total. And this is one of my plays of the year. Not that I have been great at college football, but I think Ole Miss is going to, if they get a chance, they're just going to pound LSU into oblivion.
Could be. Devin, what are you thinking when you see this matchup?
On paper, it looks like Ole Miss is going to just run away with the game. But for some reason, I don't know why, I just have a feeling that LSU is going to come to play again. And I feel like it's now getting to a point like they don't want to get embarrassed. Like it's not even to the point of are they going to be competitive in the SEC West or make a serious run, which I don't think they will. Their schedule is just ridiculous. But I just get this feeling from this team now that they beat a team that they weren't supposed to beat. Now they feel like they could do that every week. I don't think they'll actually win the game, but I just have a feeling that LSU is going to play them down to the wire. Because, even last year, Ole Miss was supposed to come in and beat up LSU pretty badly last year, but LSU held their ground. They forced a couple of Matt Corral interceptions, and, I think they won the game.
LSU won, yeah.
The difference is, Zach, is this. None of those defensive guys are here anymore, okay? And LSU, I said that they matched up well against Florida because the only thing Florida has a two-headed monster at quarterback, and neither one of them are any good, and a two-headed monster doesn't work. Ole Miss has a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback that is going to pick this team apart. And obviously, no one wants to get embarrassed. I hear what you're saying, Devin, but I don't think they're going to have a choice. I mean, because Lane Kiffin is trying to prove a point. And like I said earlier in the week, Ole Miss, they hate LSU. LSU doesn't give a rat's patoot about Ole Miss, but Ole Miss hates LSU. And if they get a chance for his fans, he's going to do everything he can to make them look bad.
The only thing I'll add to that is that Matt Corral is questionable to play. I think we all think he'll play, but there is a chance. And then the other part of that is, like, listen, if he is banged up and they have a 14-point lead in the third quarter, it's possible that Lane Kiffin would let his foot off the gas a little bit, not because he doesn't want to rub it at LSU, but just to protect his banged up quarterback, go to the backup or not call running plays or whatever, what have you. And that may keep the score a little bit at bay too. So I do think there's a factor there with the injury. But anyway, I mean, you look at it as the 2:30 CBS game of the week, and what a crappy SEC slate if LSU got on the 2:30 game. But I'm going to watch. It's going to be an interesting game. I think a lot of people will watch just for that reason. So that one's at 2:30 Saturday. And then to wrap up the weekend and kind of wrap up our look at the locals, after 15 days off, the Saints are back in action. And they are up in Seattle, which is always a tough place to play, but no Russell Wilson for the Seahawks, no Chris Carson for the Seahawks. They may start Alex Collins. They may get Rashad Penny back. We don't know. But the Seahawks are beat up. The Saints are starting to get healthier. And so the Saints are favored here.
This worries me, Zach. You're going to have a short week going into a home game on Halloween against Tampa Bay. And there's zero doubt in my mind that they've spent a big chunk of this week working on Tampa Bay. And you go into a tough place like Seattle. I know you're coming off your bye, and I know they're banged up. So it seems like the Saints should win in a walk, but I just don't. This doesn't feel right to me. I'm not saying the Saints are going to lose, but I don't think they're going to cover. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they lost this game. It's easy to think about Tampa Bay, right? I mean, they're your biggest rival in the NFC South. They're the only ones that can challenge you from winning a fifth division title in a row. And you can say all you want about you got to beat Seattle first. Of course, that's logical. We all know that. But you're human, and you don't necessarily think that when you're putting together game plans. And this game worries me. And the Saints, besides the last time when they went up there with Teddy and won, was a shocker. They don't play well in Seattle. They never have.
No, they haven't. And that game they were the ones who everybody was counting out because Drew Brees was out. And we all know Sean Payton excels in game planning in those sorts of situations. And now it's Seattle that's in that situation. The only thing I'll say to that about game planning is in a bye week, especially with the extra day for Monday, you really ought to have had time to plan for both. It shouldn't be a situation where, we had to focus on the Bucs or we had to spend too many resources on that because that's the more important game and we weren't ready for Seattle. I think an NFL staff, given a bye week, should be able to game plan for both there.
It should, but I mean,
and this is a good coaching staff.
They spent a week playing golf, eating bonbons. So who knows how much time they spent that first week doing anything.
Devin, what are you thinking here?
I think it's going to be an ugly game by both teams. They both play ugly brands of football. I mean, both are like ball control type of teams. They're going to try to run the ball, set up play action. Both have kind of quarterbacks that Geno Smith, they're not really comparable in terms of talent, but in terms of how their coaches call the game, they're both very careful with how they call the game. Because of how bad Seattle's defense is, you can't really afford turnovers. So they're very careful what they call with Geno Smith. And then you look at the Saints, obviously Sean Payton has kind of been careful with what he calls for Jameis Winston. So I feel like it's going to be one of those games that both teams are going to run the ball a lot, play complementary football defensively, probably a low-scoring game. But I think the Saints win. I don't think they cover, but I think they win ugly.
Yeah, I actually have the Saints the Seahawks on the spread. I do have the under on the game, and I think the Saints will win it by a field goal and survive. But it's one of those games. It's a classic NFL game, especially a primetime game, Jim. You just don't really know what you're going to get.
No, couldn't you see 17-13 or something like that? I mean, easily. I agree with both of you. I think this is a low-scoring, ugly kind of game that Monday Night Football says, ugh, that's not what we thought we were going to have when we signed this one up. Devin, maybe they should get rid of Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
totally kidding. Totally kidding. No, I agree with both of you. I think it's going to be an ugly kind of game, and it's going to be defense. And the good news for the Saints is as much as Saints fans are worried about Jameis Winston turning the football over, I think Geno Smith is probably just as likely to turn the ball over, especially with the Saints ball hawking defense. So I'll put the over-under on turnovers at about 4.5 in this one total. Zach, are we having issues with Zach again?
I think so.
But Devin, I mean, couldn't you see a game where there are 3 or 4 picks and a fumble or two? And I read somewhere that I think the weather's supposed to be ugly on Monday night as well.
Yeah, I mean, if the weather is bad, there's definitely going to be a couple of fumbles or two in that game. But I just feel like both quarterbacks, I don't think either one is going to play extremely well on Monday night. And I think you'll see a better Jameis Winston against Tampa Bay because he has more of a personal attachment to that game. Sure. Saints have a personal attachment to that game. So I think people are going to be a little worried after this game, but I think he'll be fine.
I was looking at the early spread and sorry to cut you off, Zach. I was looking at the early spread for Tampa, and it's somewhere around -4 Tampa right now. And I can tell you right now that's going to go up. And if the Saints somehow lose this week, you might get 7 or 8, and it's going to be a perfect spot to bet the Saints next week. With a Halloween crowd in the Dome, they've only had 1 home game. Every goblin and ghoul and ghost and witch is going to be in the Dome drinking Dome foam on that Sunday. And I can't wait to see what that line ends up being. But I will be taking the Saints next week.
No, that'll be a fascinating line too. You're right to watch that, especially if the Saints were to lose. How high would it get? Sorry for the technical difficulties there. I cannot. I'm the one in the Advocate headquarters here and can't seem to figure out the internet, so I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll get it settled for one of these shows. But with that being said, let's play big bucks. And I did, Jim, since you. Jim, I wanted to give you a standing ovation. I'm hooked up here, so I couldn't. But you said we don't give you enough recognition. Jim Derry won, everybody. He won the week. $73.
By $1.
All right, throw those greenbacks in the air.
I told you guys I'm lulling you to sleep, and now I'm going to beat Devin by $1 a week. And 1,000 weeks from now, I will be ahead of him.
Not only did you win the week, it was your first positive week of the entire season. It's only taken 6 weeks. Yeah, 2 teasers, a money line on an underdog. Which I think if the Bills had scored no, they still wouldn't have covered, I guess. But if the Bills had covered that Monday night game, you still would have been underwater. So you did get it. Congratulations! I wear the dunce cap for the week, especially for that.
I still would have been ahead. Even if the Titans would have covered, because I had 40 on the spread and 20 on the money line. So
yeah, I'm saying if the Bills had covered, but yeah, you were safe.
I still would have been positive. Yeah. So I knew I was going to have my first positive week, and when they stopped Josh Allen on a 4th and inches, I think the neighborhood people thought something was wrong in the house because I got a little excited. Let's just say that.
I have to wear my dunce cap, especially for that Liberty pick. I picked a -32.5, and they lost. So if there's any Warhawks fans in the audience, I apologize for doubting ULM. Their biggest win in years, taking down Hugh Freeze and Liberty. So congratulations on that, and I will wear my dunce cap. Devin, you had a couple of nice picks and another good week bouncing back from really your only bad week of the year. I did warn you about taking the Jayhawks, though. I told you they never cover. You can't take them.
I just tried to swing for the fences there. It was very apparent by halftime that was a horrendous pick. So probably one of my worst picks of the year, without a doubt.
I think and then you see my alma mater, Missouri. I picked against them. I don't think Missouri or Kansas has covered the entire year. They're like a combined 0-12 against the spread. So you can make some money. Now this week, Missouri's off and Kansas plays Oklahoma, and it's like a 39-point spread. So it's one of those where, even if they, probably not, but even if they play bad, they might cover that just because, if they get a couple of garbage touchdowns, they'll lose 49-14 or something. But I don't know. Let's play big bucks for week 7. Our best bets, Devin, you're going with the Ravens, and I think Jim is against you on this one.
Yeah, I just have a feeling that the Ravens are starting to come into their own. I know they think they just had a tackle go down, but the level of Lamar Jackson and now their defense is playing well. I just have a feeling the Bengals are going to have a long day against Baltimore on Sunday. So I feel pretty confident about the Ravens at this point.
We'll let Jim offer a rebuttal there in a minute, but they certainly looked terrific last week.
I don't necessarily think the Ravens. I'm not going to say anything bad about the Ravens. I think they are playing fairly well. The problem with the Ravens is it's like every third week they come up with this monster game, and the rest of them they're all like scary down at the wire. And they had their great game last week. I think it's more of people are discounting Cincinnati. I still see like these goofy rankings, which are just silly. Unless you're putting rankings together to come up with how you formulate what spread should be and whether you're getting value in a spread. Rankings are silly in the NFL. They just are. That being said, I see quote-unquote experts still having Cincinnati around 17, 18, 19. And I'm not sure what Bengals team they're watching because their defense is at worst average. They've been pretty good along the front line, actually. I thought they played some pretty good games. Their offense is way better than average. As long as Joe Mixon stays healthy and Jamar Chase has got a chance to be the rookie of the year and Joe Burrow is playing like a top 5 or 6 quarterback. I mean, I don't understand where the love is lost from Cincinnati, but I mean, basically this spread is telling me that the Ravens would be favored in Cincinnati, and I don't think that should be the case. But it is what it is. I've been wrong before.
Tell us about your teaser. I guess since you won a couple last week, you got to keep playing them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually like them in certain spots. It depends on what the number is. And both of these numbers stick out to me as good numbers. And the reason being because, the Patriots just need to beat the Jets for the first half of this to happen. And then you got Tampa Bay, who's given 12.5. I like them with the spread. And so to get them in a teaser where they're only that hook number, that 6.5 number, if this were a 13-point spread, I wouldn't put the Bucs in a teaser because I wouldn't like them at -7. But to get them at -6.5, if you can still do that, that's why this is a great teaser. I think, what do the Bears – what is the only thing they can do on offense? Run the football. They're not going to run the football against Tampa Bay. They can't throw the ball at all, as bad as the Bucs defense is. I love Tampa Bay this week. I probably should have also put them in my best bets as a straight-up 12.5 pick because I just don't see how the Bears are going to score. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Bears either got shut out or finished in double digits, which to me means Tampa Bay's only got to score 3 touchdowns, and I think they can do that even against a decent Bears defense.
No, I actually agree with you on the Bucs, and that is the point of a teaser: is it get past a key number, and now you have some value there, and you were able to do that on both of those. So I do like that teaser. My best bet's Fresno State. They look real good. They play well at home. Got a good offense. Don't think Nevada can score with them, so I'm going with the Bulldogs. Devin, run us through some of your picks here. We talked about the Ravens and Bengals as your big money pick, but everything else kind of a little bit of everything here.
Yeah, so one that for some reason I feel like it might be a shootout type of game. I think Oklahoma State, Iowa State. I'm taking the over 47 on that game. Oklahoma State I didn't feel comfortable with taking Oklahoma State against the spread because I feel like they haven't been playing good enough to cover that spread. I just feel like they're bound for a bad week, and this could be it. And the Big 12 is known for not having defense. So I know both teams are kind of like defensive kind of led teams, but I just feel like a shootout's coming in that game. I like Ohio State minus 21 against Indiana. Indiana has kind of been hanging on to kind of close games, but Ohio State, I think they're finally starting to play well. They're finally starting to get in a rhythm, and I don't think that game will be remotely close. So I'm taking them in that game. And then NFL action, Colts +4 against the 49ers. 49ers are kind of free falling right now, have a rookie quarterback at the helm, and the Colts are playing good football. I know they just lost their safety to Achilles injury, I think, in practice, but Carson Wentz has actually looked good. And I don't think they're out of the AFC South race just yet. I know Tennessee is starting to heat up and starting to play much better, but I think the Colts can still make a run and maybe they'll grab a wild card spot. So those are some of the best picks, or some of the picks that I really like this week.
A lot to look at there, and Devin's obviously done very well this year. In fact, looked at one way, he's done almost $1,000 better than Jim Derry. Devin's at 23.20, Jim's at 13.45 for the year. But as you said, Jim, you're starting to climb the mountain again, man. So tell us what you got this week. You were careful this week, only 6 picks.
$1 a week, that's all it takes. But I know my NFL picks are probably in trouble because all 3 of Devin's NFL picks go against what I picked in my NFL picks column. So I'm in deep doo-doo, I guess. And as far as the 49ers go, I think Jimmy G is coming back this week. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think I read that Garoppolo is going to play.
He is practicing for sure, so he should be, yeah.
As far as my picks go here, we already talked about Patriots Bucks, and I told you what I thought about Ole Miss LSU. One of the things I like about Falcons minus, basically just got to win the first half. And my thinking there is this: Dolphins I think the Falcons are going to cover anyway, but I feel much more strongly about the first half because I think the Dolphins are going to come out slow. Coming back from London, it's a rare instance when you play in London and you don't get a bye the next week. The Dolphins are a mess anyway. I know that people want to think the Dolphins aren't a 1-5 team, but you lost to Jacksonville. I mean, I can't believe in you anymore. And I still think the Falcons are a decent team. I don't think they're a good team, but I think they're an average, at least at best team. And I'm coming off of a bye week, very well rested against a team that's anything but well rested. I like Atlanta, at least in the first half there. And then
that's fascinating, Jim. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't even think about that. Are the Dolphins the first team not to get a bye after a London game? I can't remember that happening.
It's very rare. I know when the Saints have gone to London that they've gotten a bye week. I think, what have they been, 2 or 3 times? But they get a bye week when they came back from London. And most teams do. And Jacksonville got a bye this week. The 2 teams before that that went to London.
It was the Falcons and the Jets. Yeah.
They both got a bye last week. So I don't understand why the Dolphins didn't get one here. Maybe it didn't work out with their schedule and when they need to be at home or whatever. I'm not exactly sure, but whatever, I think it's going to play in here. And then my other favorite pick, and I'm not sure why I only put 33 on it, but maybe because I picked this earlier in the week, even though I gave it to you this morning. The Eagles +3 Raiders. You know, the teams that lose their coach, they often play very well the first game after losing their coach. I didn't necessarily think that was going to be the case last week, but so be it, they did. The problem is after that, all the high and all the emotion that's running through you is kind of gone and you go flat. It's kind of like, even though it wasn't a new coach situation, but look what the Saints did against Green Bay. All the emotion they spent after Ida and not being able to play at home and playing in Jacksonville, they spend all this energy. They play a nearly flawless game against Green Bay and then lay an egg that no one really saw coming. And I think this is a similar situation. I think that they're going to have trouble stopping Jalen Hurts. And actually, Philly's getting some help back on their offensive line. Both of the Raiders' lines have not been great. I don't see how I think the Eagles win this game straight up. Maybe I should have taken the money line. And then I think the Cardinals also are due for a mini letdown. I think they win the game. I took them with all 3 of my knockout picks, so I sure hope so. But I think that's too many points to lay, even in Houston. In the NFL, 17.5 points is just a whole lot.
It's one of the largest spreads of all time. I mean, it's in the top 10. So 17.5, I actually agree with that one. I thought about taking it myself. Texans 17.5 points. Just don't get blown out. And I know the Cardinals have blown some teams out, but you're right. They may be due for a letdown. Chase Edmonds is banged up, so they may, similar to what we were talking about with Ole Miss, if a guy's hurt and you've got a lead, pull back on him. Don't overuse him this week. So that is an interesting pick. My big bucks picks went high volume again here. I like a couple of underdogs on the road. This is the first time Clemson has been an underdog since the national championship game against LSU, which they obviously lost. And Clemson has not played real well this year, and I think they're 1-5 against the spread. But they've been favored by a lot of points, and in some cases, too many points in these games. I do think Pittsburgh, it's going to be a big game, but that team and that program is not used to that spot. And I think Clemson, with its defense, can come in and keep that game close. I feel good getting the field goal there. We talked about Fresno State. I just think that offense is too good. Texas A&M has been playing well, but they may be due for a letdown, and that may be overreaction. South Carolina barely beat Vanderbilt last week, but they're a good enough team to stay within a couple touchdowns. And then in the NFL, I agree with you on the Eagles. I do think the Chiefs cover against the Titans. I think there was a little bit of an overreaction to the Titans win on Monday night, but you've got to remember, as good as the Titans looked, that was a physical game, and they're on a short week. And they had 2 or 3 injuries in the secondary in that game. And now you've got the Chiefs coming to town who are going to throw the ball all over the yard, as we know. And they've been playing a little bit better on defense. And I just think it's a good spot for Kansas City.
You didn't do yourself any favors either, Zach, because that spreads down to 4.5. So I think Drunk Joe and Aunt Mabel are betting on the Titans. And I guess so am I. So that's a brilliant pick. But it's down to 4.5 now. Yeah,
we'll see. Knowing my luck, they'll win by 5 after what happened last week with the with the Patriots and with Georgia getting killed on the last play of the game in two different picks. But that's gambling, right? That's James Carville said that's what happens. So that's big bucks. That's the high stakes game we play for no real money at all. And Devin is in the lead. And I guess you can retire to Cabo or something with the lead in big bucks. I don't know what you get for that, but you are in the lead. We have a busy night tonight. We talked about it. Dodgers-Braves game 5 in baseball. We have a couple of local college football games, Tulane at SMU and UL at Arkansas State. And then, of course, we have Thursday night football, Broncos and Browns. So what's one thing you're looking for this weekend, Jim?
The baseball has been fantastic, but still, it's all about football right now. Look, I made sure that the Braves would win the World Series because it's too long to explain, and I know we got to go, so I'm not going to explain how. But if anybody but the Braves win the World Series, I've got my bets in at timely times, and I win a decent-sized amount of money no matter who wins the World Series, as long as it's not the Braves. So Atlanta fans, get yourselves ready. You're going to win. You're going to win the World Championship this year, and I won't be upset because of the 4 teams that are remaining, they're really the only ones I even kind of like. So go Braves.
I see. I'm in the same boat, except the Dodgers are the only ones that I kind of like. And I know that's unpopular around here, but I've lived in California a long time, saw a lot of Dodgers games. So I'm hoping they have another 3-1 comeback in them. I don't know about that. Devin, I know you're an Atlanta guy too, so you got to be excited.
Yeah, it's cool to see the home team, do their thing. Hopefully, they're not in a situation where they blow another 3-1 lead. I mean, because they have done so against these same Dodgers. But we'll see what happens. I don't know if they will be able to shake the Atlanta curse, so to speak, in sports, because it's been pretty rough for them over the last 10, 15 years. They cannot close out a series, a game, etc. So we'll see what happens. Dodgers aren't out of it just yet, so we'll see if the Braves can close it out tonight or not. But looking forward to another big week of college football, NFL football. I think we'll probably get a few more upsets in college football because Coastal lost last night, even though people thought they would beat Appalachian State pretty handedly, and it seems like every week we're getting a top 5, top 10 loss in college football. So don't be surprised. I don't think it will be Oklahoma losing to Kansas, although that would probably, since social